So we're doing a bit of exploring on this rock pile here. You can see a little bit more over there. It's just a little bit of fossils and stuff. Got a Bryozoan here. Tony got this nice little inflated wreck just out, and we're just checking it out. But it looks like we're hitting some like Ordovician material, and it's just all this loose shaly stuff. Here we got just a mix of like little loose stuff I've been finding on top. Nice little Brachiopod. So we'll keep looking. We're hoping for Trilobites. I've been told, and I've seen pictures of Trilobites said to be found from here. So we'll keep poking around and seeing if we find anything. Here I got an interesting fossil plate that's got a bunch of stuff in it. You can just see this material all has like fossils in it. Like this has got something in it. Some like corals and Bryozoans, Brachiopods. It's got a bunch of stuff in it if you look closely. Look at all that material. Like just crazy stuff. So we're just gonna keep poking around and see what we can find. There's a lot of this material, and you can see it just kind of goes along the back as well. So we're just gonna keep poking around to see if we can find anything super interesting. A couple more interesting things. Gastropod, Bryozoan. I think that's a Bryozoan, not 100% sure. Brachiopod, and then I have a piece, where did I put it? Right here. I think that's a huge piece of Trilobite. Of what? I don't know. Not too familiar with the Ordovician, but it's a good sign. Hopefully there's intact ones here somewhere. Looks like Tony found a nice cephalopod as well, or a partial one. So there's some good stuff in here, good promise. Little brachiopods, some crinoid stem, and then we got this nice little gastropod in the rock. But we'll keep looking. It's kind of a jumble. We're not finding any whole things just yet, like as far as trilobites go, but we'll keep you guys posted. So just moving on, and then I spotted this guy. This, I believe, is part of a cephalopod. In this case, an orthocone, I believe. So this would have been like a squid-like creature, shelled one. And then on top of that, we've got this brachiopod here. Saw more material. There's like little brachiopods. Little brachiopods over here. A whole bunch of little material in this area. But yeah, cool stuff. Another little brachiopod. So we're just gonna keep looking for a little bit more, and then we gotta get on our way. Tony's doing pretty good. He's got, so that's a little trilobite butt, and then he's got some nice gastropods. Might have to go where he's going. Get myself a nice gastropod or something. But yeah, there's some good stuff here. Good promise. It's just all this like loose, shaly limestone material, and we're just going through it and finding lots of interesting stuff. So we just keep moving on, and we keep finding interesting stuff. I got some gastropods, weird sponge little thing, a little trilobite tail. That might be a mini cephalopod, but the back end is really weird. That doesn't look cephalopod to me on the back end. This is a gastropod on top of a brachiopod, you can see, and then there's this decent sized brachiopod, but unfortunately it's a bit damaged. But that's like a nice big whole one, or inflated one, that the biggest one I found. And actually I just see right here, pick it up, another tiny little nice brachiopod. So this place definitely has some interesting fossils to collect. So to the untrained eye, this might just look like a pebble, but then when you look at the back, you can actually see the remnants of a hinge. So this is some sort of steinkern, which is an internal cast of some sort of polypod, so like a clam, or a brachiopod, so like a clam-like creature. Not 100% sure on what it is, but that's kind of cool. It's a nice sized one too. Here we have a bunch of the fossil material cleaned up. Now, we'll start with the stuff I do recognize, and then work our way to the stuff that I don't really have a clue what it is. If you guys want to comment below, or I'm going to do some research while I'm finishing editing this video, so I might actually have an answer by the time I'm done editing this video. If I do, I'll throw up some names of the things that I don't have a clue for, specifically kind of these weird little cone-shaped things and these little bulbous fossils that I found. But let's just start in the back here with some of the cephalopod material found. You can see these individual segments. These would have been part of a larger cone structure, basically like a cone-shaped shell that the cephalopod, the squid-like creature, would have lived in and used for protection. Here's another example with more segments. It's not all there, but you can see this individual segments. And then we've got this smaller one where you can see the segments in it, but what's interesting is that it's got texture on the back here. You can see these weird striations. Now, me and my buddy Tony, who was collecting at this location with me, were talking about it, and he thinks, his theory is this is actually part of the actual outer shell, because what you're seeing here is the internal structure, the internal segments, and the shell has eroded away. But on the back here, you can't see those internal segments, and they're covered in this weird textured striated material, which is very interesting. And if it is the outer shell, that's very uncommon and very cool to find. Now moving on, we are on to the gastropods. All of these are what are considered steinkerns. Maybe some of them, like this white material in the back here, that might be actually shell material, but most of these are the internal casts. So what has happened is sediments have filled in the casts of the shells, or the inside of the shells, and then the shell material has eroded away, but the inside has survived and hardened. And so you get this inner impression of the original gastropod shell. Now, some of these might have little fragments of surviving shell, but most of these are just the internal structures. And most of them seem to kind of be the same type or a similar type, with only one kind of being like a different kind of type, a corkscrew type versus like a flatter swirled shell. This one is kind of interesting because you got the gastropod, but then you've also got a Brachiopod in the mix, a nice little combo specimen. This was the largest gastropod I found. My friend Tony found some larger ones. I showed them earlier in the video. But overall, I would say there were some good gastropods at this location. At this location, there was lots of bryozoan material. So I only took the pieces that really interested me, that had some cool textures. Let's see if we can get a good look at some of those textures. So their bryozoans are an interesting type of creature. They're not corals. They're kind of coral-like, but not exactly corals. They kind of I think they filled in kind of a similar niche where they helped build reefs, or were part of reef structures in these early oceans. And so they're an integral part of the kind of like the ecosystem of these early oceans. And you can see some of those interesting textures. Now moving on to the bivalves. Most of the material here I think is Brachiopod. This one, now it could just be eroded, but this is like a steinkern, but it could also be that it is a plecopod by the looks of it. So both plecopods and brachiopods are bivalves. However, plecopods don't have the symmetry that I forget the term for it. There's two types of symmetry. There's I think there's lateral and horizontal. I want to say this might be lateral. I think plecopods are lateral and brachiopods are horizontal, have horizontal symmetry. I might have totally butchered that, and it might be the other way around. But most of the material I found seems to be brachiopod. There's a couple different species, as you can see. There's some variety in the material with different shapes and stuff. Not as much variety as I would say like the Devonian period, but I believe the Devonian period is kind of known for having like this huge explosion of different brachiopod species. And depending on the time period in the Ordovician, I know there's certain time periods where a bunch of the sea life and animal life on Earth has just like died off, and so you get left with like the stragglers, the survivors, and so you don't get as much diversity. But overall, still lots of cool, especially the smaller brachiopods, lots of cool small brachiopods with different textures and structure, and just overall very cool. It was a lot of fun to kind of pick through and collect all the material, all these small ones at this location. The main reason we were at this location, we were hoping for some Ordovician trilobites. We did end up finding some bits and pieces, but no whole ones. For example, here is a Pygidium, a trilobite tail. You can see the kind of the midsection and then the outer lobes. Nothing super fantastic, nothing to write home about, but that's good evidence that hopefully there's a whole one at this location. So future trips are needed to see if we can find something better. Here's another tail section, just a piece of it, just the back end of it. But all the trilobite material we found was pretty much fragmented, and there was nothing that was even partially intact that we could find. Now this brings us to the fossils that I have no clue what they are. I believe my friend Tony mentioned that they might be some sort of sponge. Here's one that you can kind of get a cross section of, and you can actually see it's got these kind of striated internal structures, like these striations, so they go internally, and then on the outside, let's see, I think this one has a good example of texture. You can see all this little kind of dimpling and pock marking, so that seems to be the outer texture, and they seem to kind of be cone-like, so they have, I assume, maybe this is the bottom or maybe this is the top, I don't know. They've got a flared end and then a rounded end. You can kind of see like this one has the rounded end, and you can see the bottom flares out. Now some of them don't flare out as much, and then some do, so I'm wondering if that's just a different species of these maybe sponges. I'm not 100% sure. I have to do some more research. I'll try and throw up some info for you guys to try and clarify what these might be, but there were lots of these here, so that was interesting. Now another thing there were a lot of were these. They were kind of round. Some of them had a little bit of damage where they seemed to be attached to maybe like a stem-like structure. And they also had like those cone shapes. They had this dimpling on the outside. I'm not 100% sure if these are related to those cone fossils or if they are separate things, but they are really interesting nonetheless. I'll have to talk to my friend Tony about these more and also do some research on my own and see what I can come up with. But yeah, again, some interesting mystery fossils, and there were lots of these. I didn't take as much home because there was just so many of them. I kind of picked and choose the best ones that I could find. But this brings us to the end of the video. If you like this type of stuff, I do rock hounding and fossil hunting collecting videos mostly. So if you like that, please consider dropping a subscription and hitting that like button if you haven't already. And please, in the comments below, mention what you found the most interesting. And folks, just please have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.